Hey everybody, and welcome to Prop Live, the show where we take your prop and costume making questions and answer them to the best of our abilities. This week we have a guest, a buddy of mine from way back in the days of, I don't know, what did we do? PAX East years ago? Yeah, Zander Brandt from Zprops. Hey Zander, how's it going?
What's up, man? What is going on?
Folks who are not familiar should head over to zprops.net to see what Zander's all about. Tell me what you've been working on lately, man.
As you know, I've been doing the Destiny craze, getting on the bandwagon here. Doing some pistols, mostly hand cannons.
Oh yeah, I have one of them too,
yes.
and it is awesome.
My favorite patron here.
Yes, definitely. I'm super stoked to have the time to put mine together. I got the hand cannon, and I will say too, like you it seemed like you dropped off the planet for a little while, but then you kind of came back like, hey everyone, I'm amazing at making molds now. Like what happened? What happened there?
wait. I do a lot of absences. Are you talking about February to March-ish this year, or was this?
No, before that. Because I know before, like, did you mold your Matic, or did someone else do that?
Yeah. So the Matic was the first thing I ever molded.
Right.
And so yeah, there was definitely a break there. I was definitely doing some research, and like I went to BJB, and I got some trial stuff, and I wasn't really crazy about their silicones, and so I was definitely learning everything as quickly as I could to fill this run on the RPF, So then when I was confident enough to do it, I just jumped in and did it, and then those are my first molds. So I did a lot of reading and prep because I didn't want to waste $400 on stuff. I
got you. Well, I'll tell you what, it has paid off because that kit that I got, if anyone's thinking about getting like a Destiny hand cannon kit, Zander's is the one to get. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
Oh yeah, because I got one and it's worth every freaking penny.
Except when the site breaks off, because it might.
I got the one. I got it so that I can make the cylinder removable, like you can reload it and everything. So it's pretty neat. You're working on more of that stuff too, right?
Yeah. So I've got Eric's Hawk Moon. I think, I've been pimping for Eric lately. It's his first one that he's offering that's reloadable, but. Basically, I did the sides, the hammer, the dome behind the cylinder, cleaned everything up, did all the details on the lights, and scratch built the grip and the top rail details here. So it's going to be a cool kit. You can check out Impact Props for this kit. I think he's going to mold it around, I want to say maybe late April, early May is probably my guess. So I've been busy with that, and I'm going to do Fatebringer, which I actually haven't talked about a lot.
Ooh.
There's Fatebringer right there. So just a few more details on this guy here and this guy here, and then that will be ready. So there's the little Fatebringer side all ready to go, and the alternate cylinder, which is very Borderlands-esque. This is a different one than the standard cylinder, different swing arm. Moving trigger and all that. Reload stuff, so that will be a time sink. And I think Bill crashed again. I'm gonna give him a minute. Oh no, here comes the text. Yep, so we are waiting for Bill to reboot. So from what I understand, he is trying a new program, and he's trying a new rig or something thereabouts. So bear with us. Let's see, I'll show you guys some toys while we wait here. I made a thing from T-Fortress 2. You guys like TF2? This is the Engineer's PDA, because I went to a convention where you weren't allowed to have guns, so I made a PDA. Yay! So fun stuff. MDF styrene, great stuff. And then I finally got around to finishing a shotgun from Team Fortress 2. I made the molds for this like days ago, but never really finished one.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you for holding down the fort. I don't know
No
what's going
problem.
on with my computer.
I'm just entertaining people with my junk.
Okay. Oh, wow. Hey, this
All
is
right.
a PG show, all right?
Bro.
Cool,
So all
man.
that cock magic, I can't help it.
All right. That is super cool. I'm really excited, especially to see more Destiny stuff out there. I will quickly let people know what I've been up to. Here we go. I've got this guy over here. If I click, boop. This is the helmet I made last week for my Destiny costume. Speaking of more Destiny, and I wore that at Emerald City Comic Con. Woo! Up here in
Nice.
Seattle. The big takeaway there is the guys from Xander. Do you ever watch the Beatdown Boogie videos?
Yep, of course.
Yeah, we got those guys to come out here, and they're putting together a music video in Seattle. They seem like they had a really good time, so I'm excited to see what they cook up.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, why don't we get into the meat of the show and start answering some questions? Why don't I pull up the questions? I keep having to restart this damn computer. All right. One moment, everybody, and I will be ready to roll with those questions. And there it is. Cool. No thanks to Google Drive for changing every 10 minutes. Here we go. All right, question number 1. This is from Fancy Lad Props. He says, I'm negotiating a commission for a custom helmet for a musician. Does that sound familiar to you, Xander?
Yeah.
He wants to make it his trademark, like his design. I would guess like the dead mouse head, even though he's probably competing with Disney for the trademark on that image. The musician wants to own the rights to the design, but as the creator of the original design, do I, the prop maker, have intellectual rights? That's really tricky, and there are people who do deal with like trademark lawyers and copyright lawyers, and they would probably really know what's what. But if I had to guess, and tell me if you think I'm right, Xander, I would guess that if the musician came to you with the design, or at least something close, and you turn that into a helmet, I think that the musician would own the rights to it by default. But if the musician says, "Hey, can you come up with something?" and you make the original design, like if you design a logo for someone, then you would probably own the rights to it, I would guess, unless you negotiate something different with the musician.
Right. That's the key. It's really, as a designer, I know a little bit about this stuff. Actually, a fair amount, because I do logos, I do T-shirts, and stuff like this. And basically, it's what's specified in the contract. But yeah, if someone comes to you with an existing design and they want you to refine it or tweak it, for the most part, they're going to specify the rights. Uh-oh. We lose you there? Okay.
No, we're good.
The rights and the continuing rights. So basically, you specify if you think if you think this is going to be a big budget client, you tack on your design fee. You try and estimate the value that you think your design will bring this company or artist, and that's what you charge them for that continuing value. But
right.
Odds are, the artist probably isn't going to blow up. Just statistically.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't worry about it too much.
No. So a good example would be like the Apple logo. Like the company Apple owns the rights to that imagery, but they probably paid someone just a ton of money to come up with that. And part of that fee was you come up with the design, but we own the rights to it, and they can afford it because they're Apple. All right. This next question. Here we go. Giorgito wants to know, have either of you ever considered casting metal props? I have not. How about you, Xander? Have you done any metal casting?
I've considered it, and actually in high school I did like a lost wax cast with, I took an airsoft pistol that I had, because they didn't make airsoft replicas out of metal way back in the day, and I took some just ABS parts, and I melted it and made a lost wax cast and then spin casted it. And you know what? It just wasn't worth the effort, to be honest. And you still have to clean it up and file it, and it's not just like drumming resin, So it's cool, but there are resins out there that are heavy enough and more paintable that they're just better. And there's a reason why everyone uses resin. It's just as good as it gets,
Yep.
So
You don't have to have a forge. You don't have to deal with metal that's going to burn you if you touch it. I will say, though, there are some high-temperature silicones that you can cast pewter into. Some really low-temperature melting metals like pewter. So that's really good for like embellishments on a costume, or things like pewter isn't great if it's got it's not really strong, but you can get away with like maybe some buckles or maybe like some jewelry type stuff. You can actually cast out of pewter, and you can buy just ingots of pewter on Amazon, and you can melt it with a camp stove. Outside, I would say probably do it outside. And then I'll have to double check on what silicones are good for that, but I do know that there are high temperature silicones that can handle that. So we'll look. What was that?
Or you just take some Coke cans on your stove and you just melt them in a pan.
That Open
totally
Props
works.
guy put together a tutorial on how to do that probably 1 or 2 years ago, almost exactly on April Fool's Day.
Right?
We'll have, by the way, my wife Brittany watches every show, and she puts together the show notes because she's awesome. Thank you very much, Brittany. So, Britt, if you could totally find out what high-temperature silicones there are and put a link to pewter, where you can buy pewter ingots, that would be fantastic. Thanks, Britt. All right. This next question comes from Fearless Facade. What is your solution for packaging large, oddly shaped props? Are there any good places to grab custom-sized packaging that you know of, or do you just make your own? So, Zander, you've probably shipped a lot of like sniper rifles and stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you do the same and everyone does the same. I just make sure you're able to break it down during shipping. That's kind of the way to go. Using PVC fittings or really strong, notches and slits and keys, that at least the buyer can like super glue together when they get it, is pretty much the way to go. But for packaging, regardless, I do custom packaging, and especially if I'm shipping something international, I'm gonna make like cardboard cutouts. If there's like a scope on here and the box edge is right here, I'm gonna make a cardboard slit at the very least to brace it while it's in. Now customs can always take this out and screw it up, so it's kind of a grab bag. I go custom.
Recently I built a box for this bow that I made, and I built the box out of wood, just like 1x4s, and I used upholstery foam to hold it in place. You don't want the piece in there to be able to move at all. Any movement you might think, oh, it'll move into like something squishy, like a pillow. Any movement at all inside the box is going to destroy the thing in there, because it doesn't matter, right? Fragile on the box doesn't matter. They will take your package and just heave it. And I've had this happen before. I don't know if you've ever like handed a box of stuff off at the post office, and the outgoing thing is back there, and they'll take it from the counter and just like free throw it. I'm like, dude, I know it's not fragile, but can you at least wait till I leave before you drop kick my props across the room?
Yeah, it's the first 5 minutes of Ace Ventura. That's what I picture when I ship something out. Yeah. So be ready for Ace Ventura.
Build it to withstand that.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. This is another question from Patrick. This is about mold making. He says, I found out you can make a quick mold from silicone caulking. Any ideas for cheap and readily available casting substance? Personally, I think silicone caulking is completely worthless for making molds. You may get 1 or 2 uses out of it, but it's meant to be adhesive. It's meant to be more rigid than most silicones. What do you think, Zander?
Yeah, there's really no good alternative. I mean, there's stuff, if you don't have undercuts, obviously there's fiberglass molding and even plaster molds if you're really budget conscious and you have no undercuts. But for like craft stuff, I tried that latex, brush on stuff, and it takes forever. You can do it, it just takes forever. So if you got a ton of time and no money, I would get brush on latex, but really you can't go wrong with a $35 trial kit from Smooth On.
I agree exactly.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, so. I recently grabbed their 20T, which is actually transparent, but the major benefit to that stuff is that it cures completely in 30 minutes. So if you need a quick small mold, I have a trial kit. I've made like 5 or 6 small molds out of that for like $30.
Huh.
It's perfect. It's
That's awesome.
and it cures really, really fast. So I did. My friend was goofing around. She wanted to make a buckle from Shield, from the Shield logo. We laser cut it, glued it together, made a mold of it, and cold cast a copy of it in about an hour and a half. And it was like, wow. $10 in materials.
I worked for a company called JR Miniatures for about a year and a half, and I got them to switch to smooth-on products, and I tried this product called Platcat, and that stuff's really weird, but it's an accelerant for silicone.
Oh, cool.
And so you can, especially in small amounts, because it requires a fair amount of it, and it's like $60 for a can like this big. But you can get flash molds out of like Rebound 25, Rebound 40, all that.
Cool. And as far as readily available casting substances, I keep Smooth Cast 300 around. It cures in like 10 minutes. It's pretty good at just about everything. So that's what I use for casting. For the most part.
I think he's kind of like considering polyester resin. That's kind of like where those kind of questions come from.
Yeah.
Stay away from polyester resin, unless you want to bathe it in Windex for like a year and get rid of the tackiness of it. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Just save a little and do it right, and then you'll be happy with it.
The trial kits, just go look at all the trial kits, and if you look at Amazon for smooth out products, they have all their trial kits available there. So just spend like $30, get a material, just get used to using it. Thank you for your question, Patrick. Don't use caulking. Crying out loud.
Or polyester resin.
Or polyester resin. Polyester resin likes to shrink when you cast it, too.
It's true.
Pain in the ass. All right, here we go. This one's from Sata. I've got a pricing question. A lot of us tend to undershoot the time it will take to complete a build, leaving us scrambling at the end. In my particular case, I need to weather my armor and paint the details by Saturday. Any shortcuts for curing? Let's see. In other words, how can I speed the process up so I can top coat it in time for the con? At the very least, use acrylic paints because that's going to dry completely in about a day. But if you're really pressed for time and you can use lacquers, lacquers cure really fast or dry really fast. See, there was a video recently that they did on the Tested website where Adam Savage was painting a model, and he had a bunch of different lacquer paints in this airbrush. And that stuff dries just about when it hits the surface, especially when you use an airbrush. So if you can get your hands on a bunch of like model making lacquer paints, that's a really good way to go as well. Have you ever, Zander, tell me, have you ever finished a project about half an hour before it's supposed to be out the door?
Oh, who hasn't? But I agree with you there. I'm all about acrylics just in general. I've never really used lacquers much. I hate the consistency of them. But I go acrylics. They're still pretty quick, and if I gotta spray something, I'll use graffiti paints if I'm in a hurry, because those are made to dry fast.
Yeah, I didn't even consider that. Yeah.
So that's all I got.
It has to be dry before the popo shows up. Yeah, this guy here. Let me zip over to my other camera because I can do that. This guy here, I did the base color. I did well. First, the whole thing was coated with Plasti Dip, and I let that dry overnight. But the base was done with Krylon Fusion, and this is Krylon Fusion, and then this is Tamiya acrylic paints on top. And I did all of that inside of a day. The Krylon Fusion paints are some of the only spray paints. When they say fast drying, they actually mean it. So if you need a spray paint that dries really fast, I say go with Krylon.
Where can you get those? Because they only have those at Walmart, and there's like no Walmarts where I live.
We have a McClendon Hardware near us, and they have all of the Krylon paints. You can also order them on Amazon too. So. All right, thank you, Santa. Good luck getting your costume done by Saturday. All right, here's one from Jardine. Do you work with Super Sculpey when making props? I don't know. Is that MDF, styrene, and a scroll saw? Because if it's not, then it's probably going to say no.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll let you take that one. I can get away
Sure.
with almost everything
Yeah.
else.
I've used it in the past, but I don't really use it very much. If I'm going to do any sculpting, I like, what do you call it? Epoxy Sculpt? You ever use that, Xander?
No, I know you and Harrison are big fans. Well, really, the
Yeah.
whole world's a big fan.
Yeah.
I just haven't had a need yet, so I
Yep.
will though. I will.
Apoxie Sculpt is really good. Smooth On makes their own product now called Freeform Sculpt that's very similar. You don't bake it. You instead will just let it cure. It's a two-part epoxy, so that's really great. I will say if you are using Super Sculpey, you can bake it with a heat gun, which can be really handy. If you're looking for someone who uses Sculpey really, really well, definitely go check out Fev Studios. In fact, we had Lee on a couple of weeks ago, I think. And she's really, really good with that stuff. But I don't use it very much. All right. Here's one from. Oh, this one's right up your alley. This one's from Adam. He says, I made a prop with EVA foam, MDF, PVC pipe, and solid wood. I was wondering if the matte black Krylon Fusion would be an adequate primer to coat the whole thing in, or if I should go through the tediousness of masking off parts, like in using proper primers. Xander, what do you usually use to prime your props?
I am all about the Rust-Oleum filler primer, but it is not ideal on foam. I know you're a big fan of that Krylon that gets into the foam. I don't know how it compares to Plasti Dip, although Plasti Dip doesn't look great on MDF and styrene and PVC. So I guess it really depends how much your prop is foam and how much of it is hard materials.
Yeah. I'm curious why a hard surface prop also has squishy foam on it. I'm wondering what the use case is. If you can, like, I would paint them separately and then attach it after they're painted. That's the way I would choose to do that. Keep the foam bits off because they're both finished in very different ways.
Yeah, I'm guessing he has like some organic grip or something on there that he was like, I'll do this. But yeah, I mean, ideally you want to design that stuff separate anyways, just for the ease of painting and assembly. But if it's already all together, I mean, I'd say majority rules. So, you know,
probably
if it's more
just
foam,
Krylon Fusion or something.
Yeah,
because that works well on just about everything.
that'll probably be fine.
Yeah, it should be. Let us know next week.
Just heat the foam before you seal it. That'll help a lot. And there you go.
Okay, here we go. A mold making question from Matthew. It says, when making a mold for pieces with intricate parts and through holes, such as a space gun with a barrel cover, how would you go about molding this type of piece? So that's good. I know that your kit that I just got from you has through holes in it.
So, okay. I mean, it all depends, like, where your screw holes are. So, like, I guess on this, I have little deep holes, but because the mold was, you know, molded as a sandwich mold, that doesn't really matter. Now, of course, I have a huge undercut in the front, so the alternative is to make either, because you're going to have a seam here, or you're going to have a seam, you can go around it with the seam, you know? So it's just really clever placement, but the alternative is to make a 3-part mold or more, or just make it a separate piece. So in this instance, I hacked off the front of this and just made it a separate piece. And then that way you can get more orientations. It's easier for the modeler to clean up each section, and they can work on other sections while other sections dry. So really everything is a case-by-case scenario, but you definitely don't want to pull the seam line across a fastener or something when you're molding.
Yep. I just went and grabbed a piece that was sitting over there. It took me a while to learn, when you're doing barrels especially, that if the seam line is going to go down the median on your gun, to not put a seam line down your barrels. And if you can, here's the barrels for the space gun. This is a completely separate piece, and this is done in a 1-part mold. That way the circular part won't get compressed at all by accident. There's no seam down the bottom of it. So I really like going with building your separate molds for the different pieces on your gun. Or proper, whatever you're building. Ta-da! Although that gun kit is 13 pieces total, and that may have been too many. Probably could have consolidated that a little bit.
Well, you got that hole for electronics, so that was part of it.
Yeah, that is pretty handy.
So.
All right, here we go. Oh, thank you. I can't remember who asked that, but thank you for your question. Here we go. This one is from Ben. He says, I love building props and have just started selling casting kits to cover my cost of the initial build. The question is, how do you figure out pricing for these things? He says, I don't want to end up making the equivalent of $5 an hour, which I've done. But I also realize that people will only pay so much for something.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump in on this one.
You do it.
I saw this question, and I made a really quick summarized document on basically cost. So I used this hand cannon as my example. This is the kit I sell. And, it's a mid-level build, so it's about, a $200 prop. That's kind of the mid-range for kits. It's like that the popular price point for serious building. And I broke down what it would cost, what it would cost in materials and labor and profit for a run of 5 and what it would cost for a run of 10. Now, before I get into this, I will say that, your work does have to be excellent quality, really, for you to sort of at least break even with this kind of stuff. So if you're still working on your technique, you definitely want to nail that, get it perfect before you even consider selling copies of your work, in my opinion. But once you've got that down, you can start calculating what your time is worth and all that. So for the hand cannon, it was about $40 in materials for the master, being the original one I made out of PVC, styrene filler primer, sandpaper, super glue, all that stuff. Took me about 50 to 60 hours, about $130 in silicone clay, MDF, foam core, all the gloves, all that stuff. It takes about 2 hours to cast each one, and maybe about 30 to 40 minutes to box and ship each one. So if I make a run of 5, that's a total of 80.5 hours, 290 materials, and if I sell each one at an average of about $235 each, that's about $1,200 minus about $300 in materials, which leaves me about $880 in net profit, right? Divided by the total number of hours is 10.93 hours, and that's probably being a little bit generous. It's probably closer to 9 or 10 for things I've left out. So if you do a small run, you want to plan on 5 to 10 of your things being sold, or you can really get kind of screwed with that, But for a run of 10, since the master is already made and your materials only go up slightly, like I did a calculation for a run of 10, it's about $2,400 total minus about $500 in material, which means you about $1,900 in profit divided by their hours of 93 hours to do 10, which is 20.75 an hour. So you can make like okay money. It's just the product has to be perfect, and if you're just starting out, you have to value your time at 0 when you make that master. If you're just starting out, because you gotta build your reputation for being a kit builder and this and that. So it's a hard question to answer, but that's as technical as I can get.
That's good. No, thanks for doing the math.
Basic math.
The good news is though, if you do put the time in and make a really really good kit and a really good mold, and that mold could make you 40 or 50 copies. So if suddenly your thing gets put on Reddit and everyone wants one, there's a lot of potential there. If you, again, like you said, if it's a really good kit, if you can charge the right price for it, and if a lot of people want it. So yeah, good luck, Ben, pricing your thing. But also, too, I like that he pointed out that he doesn't want to end up making $5 an hour. And I said this briefly earlier. You may accidentally end up making $5 an hour. You may do an entire project and totally undervalue it. That's just part of the learning process. All right, thank you for your question, Ben. Let's grab another one. Here's one from the Fedora Nerd. Fedora Nerd says, I prefer to make single props instead of making runs because I dislike making the same thing twice. Do you prefer making runs of props or one-offs creations? I do both sometimes. Depends on the material, I would say. I made a bow a while ago, and it was all wood. Like, I didn't paint it to look like wood. It was actual wood. So I couldn't exactly mold and cast that. So that was just a one-off, and it was a really fun thing to do. How about you, Zander?
I think every prop maker likes to do a little mix of both. Of course, what I do is try and steer my commissions into something that I can mold and cast and make some more money back. That way I can give the client a break. They're more likely to take it, and I make my money back in the long run. I think that's how most commission people work. Also, if I'm just taking a chance and I'm just like, I'm just going to make this, and I hope a bunch of people buy kits, I'm going to buy something that's obviously from a popular medium, but something that's also modular. You know, the hand cannon is a great example because there's the hand cannon, and then there's another variant of the hand cannon, and then there's another variant of a hand cannon, and then I can turn those bits into a kit, and so on and so forth. So things that are modular, things that you can sort of do spin-offs of are much more profitable, and I think that's kind of where I'm at right now because one-offs they're so hard to land nowadays because their standards are all over the place, and everyone's jumping in on commission work, so it's a lot harder to land a commission than it was like 3 years ago, I'd say. So
I would say if you're going to be building a one-off, or if the client specifically asks for a one-off, then make sure you are charging a little extra for that. If it's something you're charging for, I don't know, maybe the Fedora nerd is making something just for him or herself. But if you are charging for it, ask a little more for one-offs because they are. If it's a one-of-a-kind thing, then it's more valuable.
Yeah, you're not going to see it again either.
Yeah, I know. I can't tell you how many things, and you probably have the same thing where I've put, months into building something. I finish it, I send it off, never to be heard from again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's probably one of the big reasons I prefer kits a little more these days is like I always get a copy at cost. It's great. So
all right, here's one from Courtney. When going from hobbyist to full-time crafting wizard, is there anything you wish you could have done differently? And I would say everything. I wish I could have done everything differently. Hindsight is 20/20. How about you, Zander?
Yeah, I definitely would have more aggressively promoted myself because I'm a little more passive than most makers out there about that, and a few years ago when less people are doing it would have been an ideal chance to do that to get the word out there more, and that's probably my biggest thing. But I don't know, Bill, what's yours? Your big
if I had to pick one big thing, when I first started doing this full time, I took costume commissions. And I did that for a few months before I just abandoned it. It was really, really hard to make any money doing it, and I didn't enjoy building costumes for other people, only really for myself. So I would have, had I known, I would have just immediately focused on making kits. I think that's a really great place to start, and getting good at mold making early on can be really, really valuable. And I probably should have focused on that right away.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, too, I consider myself as someone who does aggressively promote his work, a lot, and I still feel like I don't do it enough. People don't complain that I'm self-promoting. I think you have to promote yourself until people start complaining, and then dial it back a little bit. And no one's complained yet, so I think I need to try and get the word out there more.
Yeah, so that's probably the big one for me, too. Yeah, mold making is really, really important. Kits are a good way, but it's kind of a balance because without a good commission base and new products on your page and this and that, commissions, really get interest more than anything. And
those big showcase pieces that you do.
You can't sell your kits, and it's kind of a balance. You have to have new commission work, and you have to have kits coming out.
Mm-hmm. Courtney also wants to know DragonCon 2015. I know I'll be there.
Question mark.
Question mark. Do you have any plans of making it to the East Coast there, Zander?
Man, I would love to. I've got so much on my plate this year. I might be moving. I don't know yet, so that's going to happen right around the same time. I'd always love to go, and Lee has very, very generously offered to put me up at her place, which is pretty cool. So that's really tempting, and I have miles. So, I mean, everything's there, but it's just
see. All right.
Am I going to be moving? Am I going to be busy?
As a maybe.
What's that?
I'll keep a couple cold ones ready for you. We'll put you down.
All right. I've got that Madoc, and it's got the flask in it. Remember that?
So handy.
So yeah, that'll be sweet.
Here we go. Oh, Dario wants to know a little bit about how you figured out the mechanism for the Hawk Moon.
Oh, the Hawk Moon. Okay. So the mechanism was actually designed was designed by Eric at Impact Props. His modeler designed this mechanism. This one's really simple because, I don't know, this is all black. It's probably going to show up that well. See this lip right here? It's a lot skinnier than it should be, and then there's this half round here, and then the chamber is about 10% smaller than it should be so that it could actually open. And then it stops on that little greebly thingy here that connects the wire to the flashlight. And so this one's rather basic, so that's why that works so well. A lot of ones in the game run on magic, like this one. I refuse to compromise, so this is all accurate. All the framing and everything's accurate, but I had to... Oh, there's the power cell. I had to change the location of the swing arm because it just would not rotate from the dead center. How do I show that? See there? It's actually coming out of the front of the gun, and it doesn't swivel from the bottom center like it should because it would just hit this lip. So really it's just like, you know, you make the parts and you just adjust them and this and that and, you know, see what works. You know, might have to compromise some accuracy or you might have to compromise some mechanical smoothness. But it's really just trial and error until you get it right.
There you go. Thank you for your question, Dario. This next one is from Air Bubbles Cosplay. I saw her last weekend.
All right.
She had one of the Hawk Moons. She's curious when Hawk Moon castings may be available.
I think I said, what was it?
April,
April,
yeah.
Something like that. That's ask Eric. Go to Impact Props on Facebook and bug him. Just send him messages, tons of messages, and tell him Zander sent you. It's all his fault.
That's what I told her when I saw her in person last weekend. I was like, go bug Zander. Go bug Impact Props. They're doing one. It's going to be awesome. Next question from her. I like props. I hate making them because I'm geometrically challenged. Any tips for simple pattern making steps? Let's see. Yeah.
Like blueprinting? Or...
Well, I'll tell you what. I do all my pattern making in 2 dimensions in just Inkscape. I just draw them. It's really low tech, and you could do it the same thing just with a pen and pencil to get your basic templating done. I don't do it in 3D at all or anything. How about you?
To death on my pages and stuff because I get asked about this fairly often is just use screenshots. Just get a screenshot off Google. I mean, games are so high res and there's so many sources available now, and you can at least just go into the game and get a print screen of whatever you're doing. I mean, I'm assuming this is for a video game because we're all video game nerds here. And that's just the way to go. You go to Kinko's and blow it up, or you get like a photo program and blow it up full scale on your monitor, and you just measure it off your monitor. You don't really need blueprints. They're nice. They help you sort of force yourself to sort out issues that would translate from one part of the prop to another or account for distortion and this and that. But the reality is, if you're just starting off, just go to Google Images, get like a side view of whatever you're making and a front view, and just measure it full scale. Just make sure the views match up, measure off the drawing, and you'll figure it out.
When I'm like drawing blueprints, I'm tracing. I'm really just tracing the image from the video game. It's the basic gist of it.
Right.
All right, thank you, Air Bubbles Cosplay, and maybe I'll see you at SakuraCon next weekend. All right, another one from the Fedora Nerd. What percentage of the parts on your builds are 3D printed? Most of mine are 0. Most of mine are 3D printed with these 3D printers that are attached to the end of my arms.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, same. I don't think I've ever made something and claimed it as my own as 3D printing. This is still the only thing. I'm not even taking on this project. This is Eric's project, and I'm just helping with it. So as far as my projects go, same number, 0.
Yeah.
I commissioned a print off Etsy and I finished it up, but I never took a picture of it or added it to my site or that kind of stuff. So,
And you do, like, you have basically a scroll saw, right? That's just about all you use.
I'm pretty lucky right now. I work in an awesome shop, right? My friend, he owns an automotive shop, but he also does, like, custom fabrication out of metal, right? So he's got all this cool stuff that I just don't know how to use, like, well, machine lathe I can kind of use, but he's got machine lathes. He's got a full like mill. He's got like tons of stuff. I use his drill press once in a while and his belt sander.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, it's just a scroll saw and a Dremel, an X-Acto knife, some files. You know, you don't need much.
Right. I got the laser cutter recently, and that's really just a super high-tech scroll saw. Like it does almost the same exact job, but it does it automatically, perfectly, accurately, and really really fast. So that's the benefit there.
Yeah, and small. You can do a lot smaller with that.
Yeah. Other than that, I have my scroll saw right here. Next to that is a belt sander and a disc sander. Next to that is a bandsaw, and next to that is a what do we have there? The drill press is really handy, an oscillating spindle sander, and a lathe. Those are the main big power tools that I use.
You have a lathe?
I do.
Mind blown.
It's the worst one you can buy at Harbor Freight.
Why did it dump out on you or what?
It's really small. I've had to lathe pieces like a gun barrel in 2 parts just to get it to fit together. Both the length of it and also the depth you can get. Like you can only lathe something like 6 inches in diameter before it hits. Like it won't fit. And also I've kind of beat it up a little bit and it started making noises. So. But it was like $130 new. I can't really complain.
Hey, there you go. Tempting.
All right, this next question is from Darcy. Let's see. There's a character from Fury Road has clear or transparent armor. What could be used to make clear armor besides clear Worbla? I'm pretty skeptical about how clear Worbla is going to be after you heat it up a whole lot.
I'm sure it's cloudy. You could vacuum form polyethylene, but that's really all I've got. You know, You could go the long road and sculpt something, the back and front of it, and make it glass and cast it in clear resin. But that has to be the worst way that I can think of. I don't really know. Yeah, I think vacuum forming is going to be your best bet, and I'm almost 95% sure for the movie that's how they did it. Yeah. You would create a sculpt out of whatever you wanted to, and then what I would do, and I've done this recently, is make a quick junk mold of that and cast a copy of it in hydrocal, which is like plaster. So you have this really solid, dense copy of your piece, and use that to vacuum form because it'll absorb the heat. It'll stand up to the abuse, and you could vacuum form several copies of it of your clear armor. I don't think it makes sense for a character to have armor that's clear. That seems silly. Unless it's a visor, I guess. Unless you have to see out of it. Why is your armor clear? Okay, here we go. This one's from Sam. He says, if you have an awesome one-off prop you never intended to be a kit, but then you decide to make it as a kit, how do you go from a single-piece prop to a multi-piece kit? And he also wants to know if you should get a scroll saw or a belt sander first. That's a question? No.
I would probably say the scroll saw. I think you can have a hard time cutting anything out with your belt sander. Yeah.
I'm just such a scroll saw fanatic, you know me.
I'm going to go on a tangent before we do this.
All right.
I want to get more. What do they call it? Like blades for a scroll saw that are omnidirectional. Do you have any of those?
Omnidirectional,
like they're like spiral blades, so you can cut a material in any direction.
That's weird. So it's almost like a stationary mill, and you're moving the medium through it. Yeah. Basically. I don't know. I feel like a blade like that would remove a lot of material, and I don't know if the tension would get strong enough to make an accurate cut on a scroll saw, because you got that blade tension, and it walks all over the place.
It does. I've been recommended to try one of those. I haven't yet. But something else I did with my scroll saw, I have this sandpaper that's cloth backed, so it's really, really sturdy, and I cut little strips. This is a strip of sandpaper that I can put in the scroll saw to clean the edges and stuff. And this has actually been really, really handy. It's just got to be this really, it's basically belt sander sandpaper, and it won't tear when you pull it because it's got cloth in there.
Right. Yeah, I kind of cheat. I do something similar with my scroll, so I just use the actual edge of the thickest blade, the large, I think it's like 7 teeth per inch,
Yeah.
and I just lightly move that across the surface and it'll sand it down for me, which is pretty nice.
Yep, that'll work out really well too. The original question was if you're gonna break down, like, how do you go about breaking down a gun you finished for mold making? I've never actually done that before.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on the gun. I mean, it depends where your undercuts are, it depends where your details are. I mean, most of the time, you're going to lose your paint job almost 90% of the time, and you're probably going to be hacking off sections of it. That's the reality of it.
It's going to be, it's not going to be it's going to be a violent process.
Yeah.
You're going to have to rebuild parts of it for sure.
But there's the golden rule of prop making: don't use glue if you can use a screw, to do the same job. So in the first place, if ever you need to take something apart or whatever, or use the glue really lightly, just enough to hold it, but not enough to So I guess planning, I know it's hindsight 2020 again, but planning is really important, and just it's where your undercuts are, and it's a case-by-case scenario for every project. So
there you go.
There's no good answer.
No, good luck. Thank you, Sam. This question's from Ryan. It says, what are your thoughts on using resin to finish foam for armor or props over Plasti Dip? I will field this one because I have many thoughts on this. So my Titan armor, which is not over there, I don't know why I'm pointing over there. My Titan armor, which is in that room, I finished all of it using resin, using an epoxy resin called Epsilon. And I did that because I wanted to get a really good smooth finish on it, which is a hard thing to get with foam. And I did the same thing on my Draugr armor from Skyrim, and that worked great for that. But the Draugr has a very inconsistent finish. It's supposed to look very beat up, and the Titan armor does not. So what happened with the Titan armor is it got all this epoxy resin on there, 2 coats of it. I was able to sand it down nice and smooth, but it doesn't flex anymore, so it cracks. So a lot of the spots on my Titan armor is starting to crack, even though I only wore it a couple times. On the flip side, the helmet I did with Plasti Dip, and you don't get a really good smooth finish on it, but it's pretty darn good. And this thing is damn near bulletproof. It's not going to crack. It'll flex. So if I had to do the armor again, I would do the Plasti Dip. Unless I was willing to put like 5 layers of Epsilon on there. If I wanted the armor to be completely rigid and not crack at all, I would heat form it until it's in the final shape that I want, and then put like a ton of Epsilon on there, and then sand it down nice and smooth. I am not willing to put that much effort into a costume, so I think I would really rather go with the Plasti Dip next time. There you go. There's all my thoughts on that.
What he said.
Boom. Next one's from Amir. He says, I made a replica of a Maliwan submachine gun from Borderlands 2, and since I made a mold of it, thought about selling kits. I was wondering, what's your opinion on Etsy stores for selling replica props, and is it a good platform for that? I've never used Etsy. How about you, Zander?
Yeah, so I do have an Etsy store. It depends. Strangely enough, they have a Valve lawyer patrolling Etsy, so I got my TFT stuff pulled almost instantly.
Same thing with anything with Marvel. Anything Marvel or Disney will get pulled pretty fast when you put it on Etsy.
Yeah, they're more aggressive on that because it's kind of like eBay, where it's easier to just find stuff like that, and they don't really discriminate against. It's like it doesn't matter who you are or how many you sell. It's just like they're just, oh, here you go, is your mass, C and D. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
So there is that aspect. I know a lot of people swear by Etsy and get like tons and tons of sales. I think the biggest thing is how long your shop's been open, because it's kind of this like almost viral thing where it's like this person favors it and then shows up in this person's favorite and then that person sees it and favors it. So like your shop's got to be open for a long time before it starts, the ball starts rolling, and people do not like to spend more than like 55, 60 bucks on something that isn't finished. So if you're selling something big like that, I would expect probably lower success rates than you would trying to get a run on the RPF or something like that. I know I haven't sold any Maddox on Etsy. I've sold like a dozen or so through other mediums. So I don't know. I think for big stuff I'd stay away from it, but Etsy is a little kind of like handmade trinket site, novelty items. So if you have something in that range, I say go for it. But I wouldn't.
The thing to remember about a platform like Etsy is that it's a discovery platform. People will go to Etsy just to look for stuff, and they may end up looking at your product. My pal Steve, who was on last week, he does most of his stuff through Etsy. But like you said, he's been there a long time. He's been doing it a long time, and he sells finished goods, finished painted masks. So he's had a lot of success there. But also he sells, like they were saying, a lot of Borderlands stuff, and 2K and Gearbox have not been coming down on that. So if you're selling an SMG from Borderlands and you sell it on Etsy, it's not going to get pulled down, which is nice. So I would say it's worth a shot. Just be prepared for a long burn. All right, let's grab. We got a little more time. We'll grab just a couple more questions here, and then we'll get rolling on out. Let's see here. This one is from Sam. He says, "Here in the UK, you cannot buy Barge. What's the next best thing?" Quick answer: something called Alpha Thixofix. Alpha Thixofix is what my friends over at Artifix use. Alpha Thixofix. There you go. I'd use it when I was over there. It's kind of more like a paste consistency than a liquid like Barge, but it's basically the same thing. There you go. Done. This one's from. This is tough. This is one from Francois. And he wants to build a bolt mechanism, like on a gun. Only he's making his gun mostly out of insulation foam.
Oh.
Yeah. Any of the moving parts, you're going to want them to be made out of something more rigid, like PVC pipe. Like PVC pipe on PVC pipe. You wouldn't want a hard plastic sliding against your insulation foam because it would easily dig into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would just you'd have to plan your build around that PVC pipe. But yeah, you just get a PVC pipe, smaller PVC pipe, drill a notch for the handle, drill it into the small PVC pipe after you put it in the big PVC pipe, and then that's your bolt. That's the simple way.
There you go. And then build the rest of the gun around it, like you said.
There it is.
Bam! Man, we are good at this.
Next.
All right. This is This is a really good one to finish everything out on. This is from Practice Props. What adhesives would you guys suggest for gluing resin kits together? Zander, when I'm gluing my hand cannon together, that's sitting right over there, what glue should I use?
Hot glue and the hopes and dreams of children. No, definitely Superglue is always the way to go.
Oh yeah. That. You don't like epoxy, like a 5-minute?
I cannot stand epoxy. It's just every time I've used it, it's brittle and this and that. And so you can use superglue to fill stuff. Some people swear by the baking soda method. I just kind of use superglue to fill in cracks, and then I sand some debris into it, fill it with more superglue, and it creates this incredibly strong bond. Like insane.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite superglue? Favorite brand?
Home Depot, actually. Yeah, it's cost effective, and when the nozzle goes bad, you're out like, a half ounce of super glue or whatever that is. It's like the big reusable ones. They're nice. They come in different thicknesses, but I hate maintaining that nozzle, and sometimes they go bad. And
yeah, I've got this. Where is it? Oh, this guy right here. Everyone knows that this is Bill's super glue because sometimes it walks away.
Yeah.
The nozzle on this is getting pretty ugly.
That stuff seems to be a little bit better for joining metal, I found. But the Home Depot stuff is just like that medium thickness. It seeps into everything, but it's also not going to run everywhere. Like it's just the perfect balance for me, and that's what I use.
Well, then that's what I will use when I put together my hand cannon.
All right.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Praxis Props, and thank you everyone else who's come to the party today. Once again, thank you, Zander, for showing up. Head on over to Zprops to check out what Zander's working on. Also, look up Zprops on the Facebooks to see what else you've got going on over there. One more final thing, if I can plug this. Let's see here. We have our Patreon, and people have been really awesome in helping to support the show right here. Patreon.com/punishedprops. We're working more and more towards doing more content every week. That's the goal, and we can do it because of you guys helping to support the show. So head on over there and check that out. All right, that's it, everyone. We'll see you all next week for another episode of Prop Live. Bye.
All right, thanks, Bill. Bye.